My name is Gerald Whitmore, and I'm 73 years old. I'm telling you this story not because it's extraordinary, though in many ways it is, but because I need you to understand something that took me half a lifetime to learn. The heart doesn't retire. It doesn't punch a clock at 65 and say, well, that's enough feeling for one lifetime. No. Sometimes, when you think the book of your life has reached its final chapter, you turn the page and find there's more story left to tell. Sometimes, when you're certain that love has taken its last bow and left the stage of your life forever, it comes back for an encore.
But here's what they don't tell you about love after 60. It's terrifying. Not in the way young love is terrifying, that reckless, foolish fear of not being texted back or saying the wrong thing at a party. No, this terror is different. It's the fear of a man who has already buried the love of his life, who has stood at a graveside and thrown dirt on his own heart, who has learned to live in a house full of ghosts and memories. It's the fear of someone who knows, truly knows, what it means to lose everything, and yet I did it anyway. This is the story of how I learned to love again after Pauline died. It's the story of mistakes I made, walls I built, and the unexpected woman who showed me that grief and joy can exist in the same room. That honoring the past doesn't mean refusing the future. But more than that, it's about the specific kind of courage it takes to be vulnerable when your bones ache, when you've already survived the unsurvivable. When every sensible part of you says it's safer to stay alone. If you're reading this and you're my age or anywhere close, you might recognize yourself in these pages. You might see your own reflection in my struggles. And if you do, I hope my story gives you something I didn't have for the longest time: permission. Permission to feel again. Permission to hope again. Permission to open that scarred-over heart one more time. Even when everything in you screams that it's too late, too risky, too painful. Because here's what I learned. It's never too late. Not at 60, not at 70, not at 80. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning, or rather, at what I thought was the ending. Pauline died on a Tuesday. I remember that detail because Tuesdays were our grocery shopping days. For 47 years, we'd gone to Morrison's Market every Tuesday afternoon, rain or shine. She'd push the cart. I'd consult the list she'd written in her careful cursive on the back of an old envelope. We had a rhythm, a dance we'd perfected over decades. She knew I'd always try to sneak chocolate-covered pretzels into the cart. I knew she'd always put them back and replace them with something sensible, like whole wheat crackers. But then later, when we were unpacking at home, I'd find a small bag of the pretzels at the bottom. Her compromise, her kindness. We never made it to Morrison's that Tuesday. The stroke took her in the kitchen, while she was writing that very shopping list. I found her on the floor, the pen still in her hand. The word tomatoes, half finished on the taper. Toma, that's as far as she got. 47 years together. And her last written word was Toma, suspended forever in that unfinished state. They tell you that grief comes in stages. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. They make it sound linear, like a journey with a clear destination. But that's not how it works. Grief isn't a path you walk once. It's an ocean you live in. And some days the water is calm enough to breathe. And other days a wave comes out of nowhere and drags you under. And you're drowning all over again. The first year was drowning. I went through the motions. I ate because my daughter Marjorie insisted, bringing me casseroles that I'd pretend to eat and mostly throw away. I slept because eventually exhaustion overtook even sorrow. I woke up because apparently the body doesn't care if the heart wants to stop. It just keeps going, keeps pumping, keeps insisting on survival, even when survival feels like punishment. I stopped going to Morrison's on Tuesdays. Couldn't do it. Instead, I went on Thursdays. Different day, different store. Like I could outrun the ghost of our routine. I'd stand in the frozen food aisle, staring at TV dinners for one. And something about those plastic trays, each compartment neatly divided, everything separate, nothing touching, felt like a metaphor for my life now. Divided, separate, nothing touching nothing. Our house, the house we'd bought when Marjorie was still in diapers. The house where we'd hosted countless Thanksgivings and birthday parties, where we'd slow danced in the kitchen at midnight on our anniversary, became a mausoleum. Every room held a memory. Her reading chair by the window, the garden she'd tended every spring, the closet still full of her clothes because I couldn't bear to touch them, couldn't bear to see them gone. People say time heals all wounds. That's not quite right. Time doesn't heal, it just gives you more space to carry the wound. By year 2, I'd learned to carry it better. I could make it through whole days without crying. I could laugh at my grandson Tommy's jokes. I could read a book, watch a movie, have a conversation about something other than loss, but I was still alone. Profoundly, achingly alone. Marjorie worried about me. She'd stop by every Sunday with Tommy, now 14 and growing like a weed, and she'd watch me with those concerned eyes, Pauline's eyes. And I could see the question she was too kind to ask. Dad, is this it? Is this all that's left? You should get out more, Dad, she'd say gently, picking up yet another stack of unread newspapers from the coffee table. Join something, the book club at the library, the gardening society, something. I'm fine, Margie. You're not fine. You're existing. There's a difference. She was right, of course. I was existing, moving through days like a ghost myself, haunting my own life. I turned 70 that year, and the number felt less like a milestone and more like a sentence. 70. 3/4 of a century. How much time did I have left? 10 years? 15 if I was lucky? And was this how I'd spend them? Alone in this tomb of memories, waiting for my own Tuesday to come. The thought terrified me. Not death itself, but dying like this. Alone, unchanged, unopened, but I didn't know what to do about it. Didn't know how to be a person in the world without Pauline. She'd been my translator, my social coordinator, my bridge to other people. I was the introvert. She was the one who made friends everywhere we went, who remembered everyone's names and birthdays, who wove us into the fabric of the community. Without her, I was just untethered. It was my doctor finally pushed me off the cliff. Gerald, Dr. Morrison said, no relation to the market, different Morrison. Your blood pressure is high, your cholesterol is up, and frankly, you look like hell. When's the last time you exercised? I walk, I said defensively. From the couch to the refrigerator doesn't count. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with that no-nonsense expression doctor's perfect. You know what I think? I think you're dying of loneliness. It's a real thing. Kills as surely as any disease. You need connection, Gerald. Community. You need to rejoin the land of the living. I'm 70 years old, Doc. Little late to be making new friends. Is it? He raised an eyebrow. Because last I checked, 70-year-olds are still human beings with beating hearts and functioning brains. You've got a good 10, maybe 20 years left if you take care of yourself. You planning to spend all of them alone in that house? The question hung in the air, like smoke. Was I? The Riverside Community Center smelled like coffee and old books and something baking. Cookies, maybe, or banana bread. I stood in the doorway, suddenly feeling absurd. What was I doing here? I didn't belong here, with these cheerful seniors doing their watercolor classes and chair yoga and God knows what else. But I'd promised Marjorie, and Dr. Morrison, and maybe, in some small way, myself. First time, a voice beside me, bright and chipper, in that way that usually makes me want to run. A woman, maybe 65, with a volunteer badge that said, Dorothy. That obvious? You've got that deer in headlights look. Don't worry, we don't bite. Much, she winked. What are you interested in? We've got chess club, current events discussion, a walking group, pottery. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe I should just... Woodworking, she said decisively. "You look like a woodworking guy. Thursdays at 2. Good group, not too chatty, but friendly. You can make something with your hands. Don't have to talk if you don't want to." And that's how, at 70 years old, I found myself standing at a workbench with a bunch of strangers, learning to make a cutting board. The instructor was a retired carpenter named Frank, gruff but patient, who explained dovetail joints with the kind of reverence most people reserve for scripture. The other members were a mixed bag, a couple of men my age, a younger guy maybe in his 50s, and, surprisingly, 2 women. One of them was Lorraine. I didn't notice her at first, not really. I was too focused on not cutting off a finger with the table saw. But after a few weeks, as I gradually stopped being the complete novice who needed everything explained twice, I started to look around, started to see the people I was working alongside. Lorraine worked at the bench across from mine. She was tall, taller than Pauline had been, with steel gray hair cut short and practical, and hands that moved with confidence over the wood. She wore reading glasses on a chain around her neck and had a habit of humming while she worked. Not loudly, just under her breath. Old songs I half recognized. She didn't talk much, which I appreciated. Some of the others chatted constantly, filling every silence with noise. But Lorraine worked with a quiet focus that reminded me of myself. Every so often, she'd pause, examine her work from different angles, make a small adjustment with the sandpaper or the plane. She was making a box. A beautiful thing with intricate inlay work that must have taken hours. "That's gorgeous," I said one day, surprising myself. I wasn't usually one to break the silence. She looked up, startled, then smiled. A small, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you. It's for my granddaughter. She's going off to college next year. Wanted something to keep her jewelry in." Lucky granddaughter. I don't know about that. I've restarted it 3 times. The corners keep not lining up quite right. She pushed her glasses up. But I suppose that's part of it, isn't it? The imperfection. Shows it was made by human hands, not a machine. I thought about that for the rest of the session. About imperfection. About things not lining up quite right. About human hands. Over the following weeks, Lorraine and I fell into an easy pattern. Not friendship exactly. Not yet. More like companionable coexistence. We'd nod hello when we arrived. Sometimes we'd stand at adjacent benches, working on our separate projects. Occasionally, we'd exchange a few words about technique or tools. I learned, in fragments, that she'd been widowed 4 years ago. That she had 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren. That she'd been a librarian for 35 years before retiring. That she loved mysteries, reading them and writing them, though she'd never published anything. "Just little stories," she said, brushing it off. "Nothing serious." "Why not serious?" I asked. She paused, considering. "Fear, probably. At my age, you'd think I'd be past that, but fear of it not being good enough. Fear of putting something out there and having it rejected. Silly, isn't it?" "Not silly," I said quietly. "I think fear doesn't care how old we are. It shows up anyway." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I had the strange sensation of being seen, not just glanced at, but actually perceived the way Pauline used to see me. "What are you afraid of, Gerald?" she asked. The question caught me off guard. We'd never talked about anything this direct, this personal. My first instinct was to deflect, to say something easy and meaningless. But something about the way she asked, genuinely curious, not prying, made me answer honestly. "Dying alone," I said. "Dying like I've been living these past few years, closed off, just done." She nodded slowly. "I understand that." We went back to our work, but something had shifted. Some wall had developed a crack. It was Frank who invited the group to Denny's after class one Thursday. "Come on, folks. We've been working together for months. Let's actually get to know each other over some coffee and pie." I almost said no. Almost. But then I caught Lorraine's eye, saw her slight shrug that seemed to say, "Why not?" and found myself nodding along. We crammed into a large booth. 8 of us, and it was loud and chaotic and nothing like the quiet dinners Pauline and I used to have. People talked over each other, laughed too loud, argued about nothing important. It should have been overwhelming. It wasn't. I sat next to Lorraine, and we were both content to mostly listen, occasionally exchanging amused glances when the argument about the best type of wood for outdoor furniture got particularly heated. "This is nice," she said quietly, just to me. "Yeah," I agreed. "It is." When the check came, there was the usual awkward dance of everyone trying to figure out how to split it. Lorraine reached for her wallet at the same time I did, and our hands brushed. Barely, just for a second, but I felt it like electricity. I pulled back like I'd touched a hot stove, and she did too, and for a moment, we both just sat there, two 70-something adults, acting like teenagers who just held hands for the first time. "Sorry," I muttered. "No, She laughed, embarrassed. "This is ridiculous." But her cheeks were flushed, and I knew mine were too, and something wordless passed between us. An acknowledgement. A possibility. "Oh no," I thought. "Oh no, no, no." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, my side of the bed. Even after all these years, I still slept on my side, and stared at the ceiling and felt panic rising in my chest. What was I doing? What was I thinking? I wasn't ready for this. Would never be ready for this. Lorraine was a nice woman, and yes, maybe I'd felt something when our hands touched, but that didn't mean anything. It couldn't mean anything. I was married to Pauline, still married in my heart, in the ways that mattered. "What do?" I whispered into the darkness, speaking to Pauline the way I sometimes still did. "Tell me what to do." But there was only silence. There'd only ever been silence these past few years. The thing about death is that it leaves you with all the questions and none of the answers. I wanted Pauline's permission, wanted her to appear ghostly and benevolent and tell me it was okay to feel something for someone else, or to tell me it wasn't okay, that I should remain faithful to her memory forever. But she didn't appear. She never did, because death doesn't work that way. It just leaves you alone with your choices. I didn't go to woodworking the next week, or the week after that. Marjorie noticed, of course. "I thought you were enjoying the center, Dad." "It was okay," I said non-committally. "Just okay? You seem better these past couple months. More present." "I'm present." She gave me that look, the one that said she knew I was lying, but loved me too much to push. "Okay, Dad, whatever you say." But on the third Thursday, I found myself getting in the car. Found myself driving to Riverside. Found myself walking through those doors, smelling coffee and old books and something baking. Lorraine was at her bench. She looked up when I came in, and something like relief crossed her face. "Gerald, I was worried you'd quit." "Thought about it," I admitted. "What changed your mind?" I set down my toolbox, picked up the birdhouse I'd been working on before my absence. I realized that being afraid of something doesn't mean you should run from it. Sometimes it means you should lean in. She smiled then, that full, genuine smile. "Welcome back. Here's what I learned about developing feelings at 70. It's slower than it was at 20, but somehow more potent. When you're young, attraction is mostly physical, mostly surface, but at our age, the traction is about recognition. It's about seeing someone's particular combination of strength and vulnerability and thinking, yes, I understand that. I understand you." Lorraine and I started meeting for coffee before woodworking, just the two of us. At the little cafe down the street, we'd talk about our projects, but we'd also talk about other things. Books, music, our families, the texture of our lives. I told her about Pauline, about the grocery lists and the Tuesday shopping trips and how I still couldn't go to Morrison's without feeling like my heart was being torn out. About the guilt, always the guilt, of even being here, having coffee with another woman, laughing at her jokes. "Does it feel like betrayal?" she asked gently. "Yes," I said honestly. "Every single day." She nodded. I felt that way too. When Harold died, I thought that was it. 53 years we've been married. How do you even think about someone else after that? It felt disloyal to even consider it. Did you consider it? No, not until recently. She looked at me over her coffee cup, and there was something vulnerable in her gaze. Not until you. My heart did something complicated in my chest, equal parts terror and elation. Lorraine, I don't know if I can. I'm not asking you to know, she interrupted. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just being honest. We're too old for games, Gerald. Too old to pretend we don't feel what we feel. What do we feel? I asked, even though I knew. Even though I could feel it in the space between us. This tentative, terrifying thing. I don't know what to call it, she admitted. It's not like young love, is it? It's something else. Something that knows about loss and fear and the fragility of everything. But it's real. I think it's real. I wanted to argue, wanted to run again. But instead, I reached across the table and took her hand. Intentionally this time, not an accident. Her fingers were warm. Her grip was strong. It scares me, I whispered. Me too. We sat like that. Two old fools holding hands in a coffee shop. Both terrified and both brave enough to stay anyway. The progression of our relationship, if I can call it that, was glacial by young people's standards. We went to movies. We had dinners. We walked in the park, slowly, because both of our knees weren't what they used to be. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. I didn't kiss her for months. Didn't even try. The physical aspect felt so fraught, so loaded with meaning and memory. How do you kiss someone new when the last person you kissed was your wife of 47 years? How do you navigate a new body, new preferences, new intimacies when everything in you is calibrated to someone who's gone? Lorraine was patient, never pushed, but I could see the question in her eyes sometimes. Where is this going? What are you doing? I didn't have an answer. My therapist, yes, I'd started seeing a therapist, at Marjorie's insistence, said I was afraid of replacing Pauline. You are not replacing her, Dr. Chen said in that infuriatingly calm way therapists have. Loving someone new doesn't erase the person you loved before. Doesn't it? I shot back. If I'm holding Lorraine, I'm not holding Pauline. If I'm thinking about Lorraine, I'm not thinking about Pauline. How is that not replacement? You have children, correct? 2 daughters. You know I do. When your second daughter was born, did you stop loving her first? I saw where she was going. That's different. Is it? The heart's capacity isn't finite, Gerald. It expands. It makes room. Loving Lorraine doesn't mean loving Pauline less. It means your heart has found room for more love. That's not betrayal. That's grace. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. The turning point came on what would have been Pauline's 72nd birthday. I always spent that day alone, visiting her grave, talking to a headstone that never answered. This year, I told Lorraine I couldn't see her that day, that I needed to be alone. She understood. Of course she understood. But when I got to the cemetery, I found I didn't want to be alone. Didn't want to spend another birthday talking to the dead. I called Lorraine. I know I said I needed space today, I said when she answered, but I think I'd like company. If you're willing, I'll be right there. She met me at the grave, didn't say anything, just stood beside me and took my hand. This is Pauline, I said, gesturing to the headstone. Pauline, this is Lorraine. It felt absurd introducing them, but also necessary. She was lucky, Lorraine said softly, to be loved like you loved her. I was the lucky one. You both were. That's how the best marriages work. She squeezed my hand. I feel the same about Harold. We were both lucky. Do you think they'd understand? I asked. What we're doing? Lorraine was quiet for a moment, considering. I think if they loved us the way we loved them, they'd want us to be happy. They'd want us to live, Gerald, fully, not just exist. I thought about that, about what Pauline would want. She'd been so full of life, always pushing me out of my comfort zone, always urging me to try new things, meet new people. Would she really want me to spend the rest of my days in that house, alone, essentially waiting to die? No, she'd be furious at me for wasting the time I had left. I want to try, I said, turning to Lorraine. I want to try this. Us. For real. Not just coffee and movies and holding hands. I want to see where this goes. Her eyes filled with tears. Are you sure? No, but I'm gonna do it anyway. She kissed me then. Our first kiss right there in the cemetery, with Pauline's name etched in granite 3 feet away. It felt like a beginning and an ending all at once. Like closing one chapter and opening another. Like permission. I'd love to tell you it was smooth sailing after that. That once I'd made the decision, everything fell into place easily. But that would be a lie. The truth is, building a new relationship at 70 is complicated. We both had children who had opinions. We both had routines and habits formed over decades. We both had grief that surfaced at unexpected moments. Marjorie was supportive but cautious when I told her about Lorraine. I want you to be happy, Dad. You know I do. But are you sure you're ready for this? I'm not sure about anything, I admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. What about Mom? There it was, the question I'd been dreading. What about her? Doesn't this feel like, I don't know, like you're moving on too fast? Margie, it's been 3 years, and it's not about moving on from your mother. It's about moving forward with my life. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. I took a breath. Your mother will always be part of me. Always. But I'm still alive, and I have maybe 10, 15 years left if I'm lucky. I don't want to spend them alone, frozen in place, like a memorial to what was. Your mother wouldn't have wanted that. She'd have kicked my ass for even considering it. Marjorie laughed despite herself. She would have, wouldn't she? Absolutely. You know how she was, always pushing me to live bigger. Be braver. Then I guess she'd approve of Lorraine. I hope so. Lorraine's daughters were less easy to convince. They were protective of their mother, suspicious of this man who'd come into her life. Was I after her money? As if either of us had significant money at this age. Was I trying to replace their father? We had an awkward dinner. Me, Lorraine, and her 2 daughters, Beatrice and June. They grilled me politely but firmly about my intentions, my finances, my health, my family. I felt like I was applying for a job. I love your mother, I said finally, the words surprising me even as I said them. It was the first time I'd said it out loud. I'm not trying to replace your father. I couldn't even if I wanted to. But I love her, and I'd like to spend whatever time I have left making her happy. That's all I'm asking for, a chance. Beatrice and June exchanged a look, some silent sister communication I couldn't interpret. Mom seems happier, June said finally. Lighter. We haven't seen her like this since Dad died. Then I guess you have our blessing, Beatrice added. But if you hurt her, you'll have to get in line, I interrupted. Behind me. Because I'd never forgive myself. After they left, Lorraine pulled me close. That was terrifying. Your daughters are terrifying. They loved him so much, their dad. It's hard for them to see me with someone else. I understand. Margie's the same way, even if she's trying to be supportive. We're a package deal, you know? You and me. We come with all this history, all these people, all this grief. I know. And you still want to do this? I kissed her forehead. Especially because of all that. Because we know what we have. We know how precious time is. We're not taking any of this for granted. Here's what I learned about love after 60. It's more intentional. When you're young, you fall in love, literally fall helplessly out of control. But at our age, you choose love. You walk into it with your eyes open, knowing all the ways it can hurt, and you choose it anyway. Lorraine and I chose each other every day. Some days it was easy, others it was hard. There were moments when I'd see her in Pauline's reading chair and have to leave the room, overcome with a grief so sudden and sharp it took my breath away. There were nights I'd call her Pauline by accident and we'd both freeze, the ghost of my first wife suddenly present between us. There were times Lorraine would withdraw into herself, lost in memories of Harold, and I'd have to remind myself not to take it personally, that her grief wasn't a rejection of me. But there were also mornings waking up next to her and feeling grateful, actually grateful to be alive. There were dinners where we'd laugh so hard we cried. There were quiet evenings working side by side in the woodshop, creating things with our hands, building something together. On my 72nd birthday, Lorraine gave me a box, the one she'd been making that first day we talked. The intricate inlay work formed my initials, GW. "I thought you were making this for your granddaughter," I said, running my fingers over the smooth wood. "I changed my mind. Seemed like you needed it more." "What am I supposed to keep in it?" She smiled. "Memories, the new ones we're making." I'm 75 now. Lorraine and I have been together for 3 years. Not living together. We're too old and set in our ways for that. But together in all the ways that matter. We have dinner 4 nights a week. We spend weekends together. We travel when my knees and her back allow it. We're talking about maybe getting married next year, though honestly, the paperwork seems exhausting at this age. But more than any of that, we're happy. Genuinely, surprisingly happy. People ask me sometimes, younger people usually, but occasionally folks my age, how I did it. How I learned to love again after losing Pauline. And I never quite know what to tell them, because there's no formula, no step-by-step guide. But there are things I learned. Lessons that maybe, if you're reading this and you're where I was 3 years ago, lost, alone, convinced your story is over, might help you find your way forward. First, grief and love aren't opposites. I thought loving Lorraine meant betraying Pauline. I thought I had to choose between honoring my past and embracing my future. But that's not how it works. Grief is love with nowhere to go. Loving someone new doesn't redirect that grief. It creates new love alongside it. My heart is big enough for both. Yours is too. Second, it's okay to be afraid. I was terrified of opening my heart again, terrified of losing another person I loved, terrified of being vulnerable at an age when everything feels increasingly fragile. That fear is legitimate. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action despite fear. Every day I choose Lorraine, I'm choosing to be brave. That's enough. Third, you're not too old. This is the big one. The one I want to say clearly and forcefully. You are not too old. Society tells us that love is for the young, that past a certain age, we're supposed to be content with memories and grandchildren and quiet resignation. That's nonsense. You're alive, you're here. Your heart still beats. That means you're still eligible for love, for joy, for new beginnings. Fourth, start small. I didn't jump into a relationship with Lorraine. I started with woodworking class, then coffee, then friendship. The intimacy built gradually, at a pace we could both handle. Don't pressure yourself to dive into the deep end. Wade in slowly. Get used to the water. Fifth, talk to someone. Therapy helped me. So did talking to Marjorie, to my doctor, even to Frank at woodworking class. Don't isolate yourself with your grief or your fears. We need witnesses to our lives. People who can reflect back to us what we can't always see ourselves. Sixth, honor the past without being imprisoned by it. I still visit Pauline's grave. I still talk about her with Marjorie, share memories, keep her alive in the stories we tell. Lorraine understands this. She does the same with Harold. Our past loves aren't competition for our present love. They're foundation. They're proof that we know how to love deeply and that we're capable of it again. Seventh, forget the timeline. People kept telling me it was too soon, or asking if I'd given it enough time. But there's no schedule for grief, and there's no schedule for healing. Some people are ready after a year, some after 10, some never, and that's okay too. Only you know when or if you're ready. Don't let anyone else's expectations dictate your journey. Eighth, the heart doesn't retire. Now, I'll say it again because it's the most important thing I learned. The heart doesn't retire. It doesn't have an expiration date. At 60, 70, 80, 90, as long as you're breathing, you're capable of feeling, of connecting, of loving. Don't write yourself off. don't assume your story is finished. You might be surprised by what chapters are still left to write. Last Tuesday, our Tuesday, because Tuesdays have become our grocery shopping day, Lorraine's and mine, we were in the produce section, debating between red peppers and yellow peppers. She likes yellow, I like red. We compromise and get both. When a young couple passed us, probably in their 30s, with a baby in the cart. The husband said something, and his wife laughed and kissed his cheek. And they looked so young and hopeful and unaware of everything that was coming. The challenges and losses and heartbreaks that life inevitably brings. I felt this wave of tenderness for them. And also this strange sense of privilege. Because I've lived long enough to know what they don't yet. That love is never wasted. Not the love I had with Pauline, not the love I have with Lorraine. Every bit of it matters. Every bit of it shapes us into who we're meant to become. What are you thinking about? Lorraine asked, watching me watch them. How lucky I am, I said. How lucky I've been. Twice. She slipped her hand into mine, right there in the grocery store, not caring who saw, and squeezed. We both are. And the thing is, she's right. We are lucky. Not because our lives have been easy, they haven't. Not because we haven't suffered, we have, deeply. But because we've loved. Because we've been willing to open our scarred hearts one more time. Because we chose to live instead of just exist. There's a Jewish proverb I heard once that goes, "The day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit." I think about that a lot these days. About patience. About growth taking time. About how nothing worthwhile happens overnight. When I walked into Riverside Community Center 3 years ago, I wasn't planting seeds. I was just trying to get through another day without drowning. But somehow, without meaning to, I planted something. Or maybe life planted something in me. And slowly, so slowly I barely noticed, it began to grow. This afternoon, Lorraine and I are finishing a project together. A bench for Marjorie's backyard. Oak with a cedar inlay. The kind of thing that will last decades if it's cared for. We're working side by side in my garage, which has become our shared workshop, and she's humming again. The way you look tonight, I think, or maybe unforgettable. And the October sun is slanting through the window, catching the sawdust in the air and making it glow like gold. This is my life now. This moment, this woman, this simple act of creation, building something with our hands, making something that will outlast us. It's not the life I imagined. It's not the life I had with Pauline. But it's beautiful in its own right. It's enough. No, it's more than enough. It's abundant. "Gerald," Lorraine says, looking up from the wood she's sanding. "Come here for a second." I set down my tools and walk over. She takes my face in her hands, those strong, capable hands that have built so many beautiful things, and kisses me, just kisses me, from no reason other than that she wants to. "What was that for?" I ask when she pulls back. "For being brave," she says simply. "For trying, for being here. I should be thanking you for the same thing. Then we'll thank each other." And we do. We stand there in the sawdust and the golden light. Two old fools who were lucky enough, brave enough, to find love twice in one lifetime. And we thank each other for showing up, for taking the risk, for proving that it's never too late to write a new chapter. Because here's what I know now. What I wish I could tell my 70-year-old self, standing frozen in that doorway at Riverside, terrified to take even one step forward. The heart doesn't retire. It doesn't matter if you're 60 or 70 or 80 or 90. It doesn't matter how much you've lost or how badly you've been hurt or how sure you are that you've used up all your chances at happiness. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still capable of love. And that means your story isn't over. It's just turning the page to a chapter you never expected. One that might be the most surprising and beautiful one yet. All you have to do is be willing to read it. All you have to do is step through the door. All you have to do is try. Dedicated to everyone who thought it was too late, it isn't. Not yet. Not ever, as long as you're still here. Thank you so much for listening to Gerald's story today. If this touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss our stories about love, hope, and second chances. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever felt it was too late to start over? Do you believe the heart truly never retires? What's holding you back from taking that first brave step? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else who needs to hear it today. Remember, you're still here. You're still breathing. Your story isn't over yet. See you in the next story. Until then, be brave.